asked President twice, Ray Needham, to speak on the day the world changed forever. It will be. He's a very eminent speaker. I have heard him speaking before, and I'm sure he will enchant us. Thank you.
I'll try and keep you all awake. Right, fellows. Yeah, this talk, which we all know is now called The Day the World Changed Forever, was originally planned to begin on the 28th of June this year. It was changed to today. The date, the 28th, and June, as well as the title, are relevant to each other and might have given a bit more impact to the talk doing it then rather than now. I was going to test your historical and geographical knowledge, memory, by giving you one or two cryptic clues to see if anyone could work out the connection between the day, 28th of June, and the title. But better late than never, I suppose, as we are close to remembering the 100th anniversary of the end of what was started on that date and what happened to Gavrilo Princip, who was a principal player in the event. A little background, but some substance and meaning to this talk. Gavrilo Princip was born 25th of July 1894 in Austrian-occupied Bosnia-Herzegovina and was a Bosnian Serb member of Young Bosnia, a Yugoslavist organisation seeking an end to the Austro-Hungarian rule in Bosnia. On the 28th of June 1914, in Sarajevo, he assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria and his wife Sophie, setting off a chain of events that would lead to the outbreak of the First World War. Princip and his accomplices were arrested and implicated the Serbian nationalist secret society known as the Black Hand. This led to Austria-Hungary issuing a démarche, a political step known to Serbia as the July Ultimatum. This basically meant that Serbia lost its sovereignty. And although they agreed to 7 of the 10 demands and were willing to discuss modifications to the others, the Austrians concluded that as they had not been satisfactorily met, they had no other option but to go to war. The Balkans has always been a hotbed of political and nationalistic ideals, and at this time Princip was a Yugoslav nationalist associated with a movement called Mlada Bosnia, which mainly consisted of Serbs but also Bosniaks and Croats. Princip had stated he was a Yugoslav national, aiming for the unification of all the Yugoslavs and their country. And he did not care what form the state arrived at, but it must be freed from the Habsburg dynasty that ruled the Austro-Hungarian Empire and had done so for years. On the 28th of June 1914, the Austro-Hungarian Archduke Ferdinand and his wife Sophie went to Sarajevo to oversee military training. And just before 10 AM on that Sunday, the couple arrived by train. The royal couple then went by car into the city to be taken onto the city hall for a reception and speeches. The convoy was led by a general, and the car's top was rolled back in order to allow the crowds a greater view of its occupants. Their car was second in line and also had its top rolled down. The 6 conspirators lined the route and were spaced out, each one with instructions to try and kill the Archduke. The first one lost his nerve and allowed the car to pass. He later said that a policeman was standing behind him and feared he would be arrested before he had a chance to throw his bomb. A second conspirator hurled a hand grenade at the car, but the driver saw it coming and accelerated away. The grenade had a 10-second delay and exploded in the wheel of the 4th car, severely wounding the occupants. To avoid capture, this one swallowed a cyanide capsule and jumped into the river. However, the pill was out of date, decayed. Well, it gets worse. Decayed, it only made him sick. And at that point, the river was only 4 inches deep anyway. I bet you think the expression best before date is a new thing, and now you know it's not. He was soon hauled out and detained. The Archduke attended the reception and complained vociferously. Well, you would, wouldn't you? Somebody tried to about his welcome, and was determined to visit the wounded in hospital. It was decided to take a different route to the hospital, avoiding the city centre. But in the confusion in doing so, they forgot to tell the royal couple's driver. True. And because he was now in front, because they wanted to stop with all the commotion. After realising the change that had been made to the route, the general who was in the car told the driver, Franz Urban, not Uber, Urban, to stop and reverse to get on the correct route. Unfortunately, in doing so, the car engine stalled and the gears locked. All this happened about 5 feet, and I'm specifically standing here because it's about 5 feet from where I am to the edge of that curtain, far edge. So all this happened, say, about 5 feet from where Princip was standing, who fired twice, hitting Franz Ferdinand in the neck and then hitting Sophie in the abdomen. Urban then drove the car to the governor's residence, but the couple died shortly after arriving there. Princip attempted suicide by biting on the cyanide pill, but it too was out of date and decayed. He was detained and his gun seized from him before he could fire another shot. The third shot was going to be in his own head anyway, so it didn't make a lot of difference. There's a photograph in existence that shows him being restrained. He was aged 19 at the time, and was just 21 days short of the 20-year minimum age required by Habsburg law to impose the death penalty. Instead, he received the maximum sentence of 20 years in prison. Now, the prison authorities weren't particularly impressed with what he tried to do, and they kept him in extremely unhealthy and insanitary conditions. He was not the most robust and healthy man at the best of times, and he died on the 28th of April 1918 in Terezin Fortress Prison in Austria from TB, 3 years and 10 months after the assassination, and was buried in an unmarked grave. There's a saying we all know, it is, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Fearing his bones might become relics for Slav nationalists, the guards secretly took the body to an unmarked grave. But a Czech, I don't know how a Czech soldier got involved, but he was a member of the burial party, remembered the location in 1920, the body was exhumed with other heroes and buried beneath a chapel in Sarajevo that was, quote, built to commemorate for eternity our Serb heroes. The gun, a Fabric National 1910 model, .38 caliber, serial number 19074, is now on permanent display in the Museum of Military History in Vienna, along with the bloody undershirt of Prince Ferdinand. The gun was on display at the Imperial War Museum in 2008 as part of the exhibition to mark the 90th anniversary of the incident. I've not been able to find anything yet whether there's going to be anything this year, but no doubt there will be. Many countries had treaties of mutual defence with each other, and after the fallout from the assassination, Russia went to the aid of Serbia, with whom they had an agreement. Remember, Serbia is the catalyst of it all. This led to Germany siding with Austria. Now, I hope you're all listening, questions will be asked. I shall say this only once. This led to Germany siding with Austria, and can only be described as a domino effect of countries declaring war on each other, upholding treaties of mutual defence they had. How did we, the British, get involved? Again, listen very carefully. Germany, to get to France, who had sided with Russia, invaded Belgium. Still with me?
Yep.
And we, having a defence treaty with the Belgians, went to their aid. The German invasion of Belgium was a result of the Schlieffen Plan, drawn up in 1908, whereby the German army was to attack through Belgium, encircle Paris from the west, forcing a French surrender. The guy who thought up the plan, General Moult, insisted that there would be a pincer movement, and the right arm had to be the strongest, because that was the one that was going to sweep north of Paris, round the coast, encircle Paris, end of story. But the plan was changed due to a change of the overall commander. The German army was to implement the plan, and a lack of confidence in the German officers, partly after the action at Lakato. Now, if you remember, Lakato was part of the retreat from Mons. Now, General Dorian Smith, who I mentioned in my Ypres talk, didn't know where they were going to where they were retreating to. They were just retreating. So he said, "We're not having this. We're going to stand and fight." And he stopped at Lakato. But it resulted in the attack. This is what caused the plan passed to the east of Paris, exposing its flank, which the British and French took advantage of at the Battle of the Marne. One of the memorable events of this battle was that almost the entire French army went to the front in Paris taxis. I don't know who paid the bill for that. It was a result of this battle that sowed the seed in the minds of those officers at the top of the German army that they could not win the war. Their master plan, the Schlieffen plan, was in ruins, and there was no plan B. The German army tried to outflank the British forces, and so began the race to the sea, which resulted in stalemate and created trenches which ran from the Belgian coast to Switzerland, some 800 miles. The rest is history, and it is still ongoing history, as the actions of Gavrilo Princip, the subsequent conflict and its ramifications still occur in that region of Europe today. So there's still grief out in Herzegovina around there. Now, I've had the pleasure of doing 3 talks on World War I, and there's another one linked to the first 3, admittedly somewhat tenuous in parts, that would tie up some loose ends, considering the actions, the myths, and there were plenty of those, and its leading players. And if asked, I would conclude these tumultuous events of the first year of World War I. I've spoken to the speaker, and it's in line for next year sometime, because I'm researching World War I, but also Crécy and Agincourt. The warlord of Agincourt, you wouldn't believe what a bloodbath that was. Absolutely, whatever. But I don't want to spoil it. You may have noticed that the date 28th crops up regularly in the story. And there's one final irony. The Treaty of Versailles, which formally ended the state of war between Germany and the Allied powers, and which basically laid the foundations for the Second World War, because of what they imposed, was signed on the 28th of June 1919, exactly 5 years from the day the world changed forever. Thank you. If anybody's got any questions? It wasn't that good.
Can I ask a technical question?
A technical, right?
I've just come back from South Korea. And they say that they are still at war with North Korea.
Yes,
That's correct.
there is no treaty was ever signed. In fact, Trump is going to talk to whoever it is, Kim Jong-un, whoever, and the South Korean president, to formally end the Korean War.
You want to sign a treaty?
You want to sign a treaty to? Oh yes, you've got to put it in writing, else people can't believe you. Yeah, it's one of those anomalies that's happened, because they weren't talking to one another anyway, were they? No. So, but thanks to that wonderful President of the United States, we're getting it sorted. You can't sort out climate change or anything else, but at least it's sorting out the Korean War, which finished.
Managed flies.
Yes.
For what it's worth, my wife makes homemade soups, and one of them is soup de Crécy.
All right.
And its prime ingredient is more or less 100% carrot.
Yeah.
But it's very, very nice. I can recommend it.
Battle Crécy, I've just started looking at that one. It's all part of the 100 Years' War, of course, Crécy and Agincourt, and other battles as well. But it's quite fascinating just how, even in those days, the politics of the various kings, queens, rulers, whatever, all got together, and one didn't like one particular president, so he went round his back and talked to somebody else, and there was going to be all sorts of fun and games. And So on the way to Agincourt, things went a little bit wrong. And basically, we won at Agincourt because the French believed they couldn't lose. That's the bottom line of Agincourt. But that will be explained. But it was, well, it's the British archers, of which there are about 8,000 at Agincourt. They were not,
The river finished it.
they were not nice people. They were not nice people at all. But because they would capture a French duke and hold him to ransom. Of course, the baggage train of the British Army word got that it was being attacked by the French. Now, some said it was the local peasants who thought they'd help themselves, but the king ordered that they
Kill the nobles.
kill all the noblemen, which greatly upset the English archers because they were seeing euros leaving them in there. So, anyway, there we are, gentlemen. Yeah, sorry, yeah, Jeff.
It's all about peace treaties, isn't it? There's still no peace treaty between Russia and Japan.
That's right.
I think Mr. Putin's going to get Donald Trump to sort it out.
Yes.
Donald Trump is in love with
Yes, that's right. Kim Jong-un, yeah.
Kim Jong-un.
Can you imagine?
No question here.
Sorry.
Just briefly,
Sorry.
You mentioned Le Cateau.
Yes.
Have you ever been there?
That's the one place I haven't been to.
I have.
I'm really
Well,
upset
Ray,
that
I used to travel to the north of France in the 80s and 90s on business. And I used to travel through a lot of the towns where all the action took place.
Yeah.
Le Cateau being one of them. It is no more than a farming village.
That's right.
And its fame is its cheese.
Yes.
But it had another fame to me. I used to go through there and then through to the Ardennes, where I was meeting customers. When you were driving down the roads, going through Le Cateau, and on towards Charleville, I was going to, the Mézières region, in the farming season, you would see little piles along the road of gun shells. When the farmers were digging up the fields, every year they would come up, and they wouldn't blow them up, they should pick them up, put them by the road. And they're going to come with the army later on and take them away. And my abiding memory is wondering if the bloody things were going to go off when I went past them.
If you go to Passchendaele now, you see piles of, you got them on the Somme even, you still see piles of shells stacked up there. And if you go to one of the craters on the Somme, the shells in the bottom, which because about 20% of the British shells in 1916 didn't explode.
No, they still
Because they
dig
get
them up.
effective.
They still come up.
Sorry.
One thing I've read last year was this Victorian entrepreneur up in Scotland by the name of Armstrong, and he did a lot of hydraulics. And he sold his hydraulics to the Japanese Navy, and they used that in their big guns and their big their capital ships. And the way it links back to Russia, just before everything kicked off, the First World War, the Japanese defeated the Russians, which was a big, oh my god, the Japanese done it. So allegedly it could have helped the First World War start, because the Russians were seen to be weak in the position, which may have encouraged the Austrians, etc.
Well, yeah, but the whole area was, nationalism was rising, and nobody could stop it. And of course, each country was blah blah blah, and away they went. So, yeah, there we are. Sorry, yes.
In the Paris Opera House, which some of us might have been to in our teenage days with the school or on your own, and everyone sits on the steps. Because if you go inside in the foyer, there's a beautiful turned staircase. And if you're lucky enough, you might go inside and see the famous chandelier from Phantom of the Opera. But if you go in the wing of the building, they've got what triggered me off was the 100 Years' War, and I remember seeing this enormous painting, literally as high as this room, bigger than those two windows, with and battle on horseback, and you could see every sinew of the horse and the strain and the wildness in his eyes in the battle. And these artists are just so clever in capturing that. It was almost living. It's just unbelievable.
More questions? No? So that was very interesting, I must say, right? I didn't have much idea about the passport. What you said was very interesting and new knowledge to me. Like I enjoyed it quite a lot. I look forward to hearing more. But if you are researching, hopefully you'll come back to us. I'm sure all of you enjoyed it as well. So you can give a big hand for our speaker.
One final word. Anybody thinking of going to Menin Gate in November this year, forget it. You won't want to get near it because of all the royalty presidents and kings and queens and whoever who will be there. And also, you want the prices good with the hotels.